Hey, this is Lorena, and I wanted to do this tutorial on this Lazy Susan cutting mat. I am so sure that you guys out there in the quilting community have bought you one of these that spins and turns, and I bought mine when they were $25 at the time, so I had mine for a long time because they're now, I think, $45, maybe even $60. And at the time I used a coupon, so I got them for what, $25, maybe 13 bucks, if that. And at the time, to spend $25, I thought it was totally insane. And now I think it's more insane. So I went ahead, and when I was doing the other tutorial on the ironing mats, I had an epiphany. On why don't I use one of my old mats that I have laying around just wasting space, and go ahead and make myself a little turntable cutting mat with that Lazy Susan. To be honest, you could do this for less than $15, especially if you're using your old mat. And so what I ended up doing is I just cut the mat to size, and then I used, let me just share this, I used E6000. It worked great. I'm not saying anything about it, but what I wanted to do is I wanted to be able to put my ironing mat on top of it and iron, and if I wanted to, take it off and use the cutting mat, and if I wanted to iron, I could put it back on. So I went and got myself this glue. It's called JB Weld. It is heat resistant. It heats up to 500 degrees. And so I ended up cutting myself another one, because this one's the one that had my E6000, and I cut myself another one from my mat that I had sitting around. And yeah, I went ahead and used the JB Weld. I haven't put heat on it yet, but I will. I'm going to see if it really works, if that glue is really heat resistant like they say it is. But I just thought this would be a really wonderful DIY for you guys to make your own cutting mat for under 15 bucks. You guys have the mats, I'm sure, laying around, and if not, ask your quilters friends if they have an extra one. And this wood was only like six something, and the Lazy Susan was only like $3 or $4. So and then the wood, I did buy the wood. I did stain it. You don't have to stain it. I just wanted mine to look a little bit elegant, luxurious. I don't know. I just wanted to make it a little bit more presentable, because you are going to see a lot more of the wood when you have this as a cutting mat. So let's get to it. I hope you like this tutorial. If anything, what I love about this, it really does rotate really smoothly, and it doesn't wobble on me, and I'm surprised that it worked. I'm really surprised it worked. So I hope you like this tutorial, and I'll see you in a minute, okay? Thanks for watching.
So let's get started. These are going to be the supplies you're going to need. You're going to need a piece of wood. Mine is 15 by 15. A Lazy Susan, which mine was 6 by 6. And a square, a 6.5 by 6.5 square, because that's going to be your base. Also, I do recommend that you have some screws. Now, when I did my mat tutorial, or my ironing mat tutorial, I really never intended to make this cutting board. So I'm going to go ahead and use the same video that I used for my mat to do the beginning of this tutorial. So here you see me having some screws. They did not come with my package of the Lazy Susan, so you may have to get these separately. What I did is I measured the center of my square, and I went ahead and laid the Lazy Susan on there. And I'm going to go ahead and mark where those screws need to go. I do recommend you do this because when you're drilling the screws in, my base shifted on me. So if you have it marked, it's easier to find where you had your square. And here I was screwing it down, and what I had to do is I had to have my son help me. And here he was screwing the screws down. And you're going to go ahead and do that on all 4 areas. Now once you have the base ready, you're going to go ahead and screw the base onto the circular wood that's going to be part of your cutting mat. And you're going to go ahead, and we manually screwed these because the drill was too big to drill down, so we manually just screwed them in. And the pine was pretty soft, so it wasn't that difficult. Also, make sure that you only increase your wood base by a ½ inch, because if not, you're not going to be able to get those screws. And so here you see that base completely done. So once you have your wood base done, it's time to go ahead and look at your mats. Here's a newer mat, but I didn't want to go ahead and use it and cut it up. So I'm using some of my old mats. This one had a lot of fleece that I cut up, and this one had paint. So this is one of the flattest mats that I had. So I went ahead and decided to use it. Here I'm cutting myself a pretty good piece that is almost exactly the size of the wood base on the width. And here I'm just cutting the piece up so it's an easier workable space. I use these heavier weight scissors. My brother-in-law gave them to me years ago. But honestly, you could use your gingers, your fabric gingers. Use your old ones that are not that sharp. And honestly, they work better because you could get a better detail cut. So here you see me have my wood base, and I'm laying it face down. I also recommend that you write on your mat on the opposite end, but I wasn't thinking when I was doing this. I just wanted to see if I could figure this out. And the good thing is when I drew the circle, it was bigger than what I needed. So I do recommend that you draw a bigger circle than what you need, because it's better to cut down than to cut too small, because then you're going to not be able to do the project you want to do. So here I cut the base or my mat, and I'm putting it to the wood base, and I want it to be right at the edge of the wood. So almost like there's a little bit of an eighth smaller to the edge of the wood. And here you see me flipping it, and I'm going to go ahead and mark it on the back side, and I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit better cutting of a detail. Now these are my Ginger fabric scissors. I know it's horrible, but they're old and my kids have used them on papers, and I need to take them to get sharpened. But these honestly work great to cut that mat down. And so here you see me cutting. If you cut kind of deep in, it's easier to cut, but after a while your hands will get tired, so be patient and take your time. So here you see my mat cut perfectly to size, and you see some areas where they had some warpage. Now I want to talk about the glue. Initially when I did this, I used E6000 and it worked great. But what happened is I wanted to put the ironing mat on top still and iron, and the E6000 under the heat of the iron, the mat started to peel up. So I decided to get a different glue that is really good with heat, and this is called JB Weld. JB Weld, you have to mix these two epoxies together. Now make sure you're in a hurry doing this, because within 6 minutes this epoxy starts to harden. The benefits of doing it with this JB Weld is you can literally put your iron on top of it, and the glue itself will not peel off. It can handle heat up to 500 degrees. Here you see my son and I mixing both epoxies together and getting it to a consistency to where it looks like a soft or gray. And the guy says it's going to take, the guy who sold me this product. And I also got this at a hardware store, so I'm sure you can get this there. And me and my son are mixing it together. He says it's going to take about 24 hours for you to go ahead and put heat on it and for it not to peel off. So here me and my son went ahead and flipped it. So initially this is my second mat, because my first mat I used E6000 and it started peeling up. And my first mat also had some warpage. So I do really recommend that you have a mat that is the least warped as possible. And so here you see me just getting off all the glue and just wiping everything down. And what me and my son did is we put 30-pound weights, and then every couple hours we rotated the weights. Now let me share some things. I wanted to stain the wood when I decided to create the cutting mat, because that's when you started to see a lot more wood. And so I went to Walmart and I got this wood stain. It really doesn't matter which kind you get. I just picked a color that I like the most. It cost me, there's some for like $3.99. I think this one cost me $5. I do recommend that if you're going to do the wood stain, to go ahead and sand all your wood so that the stain adheres to the wood. It just grabs it better. And also, my wood had like burrs when my son cut it. And so you're just sanding everything down, and I started sanding the side and smoothing everything down. And here I'm outside on a well ventilated area. I can't talk. Well ventilated area, and I started putting all of that stain on that wood. What I did is I put the stain all over, and I let the stain kind of soak into the wood, and then afterwards I started wiping it down with paper towels. And here you see me just wiping everything down. Also, I do recommend that you do this before you put the base together and before you put the mat on. But I didn't think about it until I put the mat on, and I said, oh, it would look really nice if the wood was stained now since you see so much of the wood. Um, but you know what? Now I know better, so if I make another one, I know what to do. But what I did is I got painter's tape and I put painter's tape all around my mat to try not to stain it as much. And you're going to see me go ahead and put the stain on the edge, and I'm going to go ahead and wipe it down also. So here you see me just rubbing everything off. Just know that if you do this like I did, the glue itself will keep the stain from staining to the wood. And so you see some bare areas. And what I did is I just sanded in those areas and got the glue off, and then went ahead and put the stain back on, and it worked just great. And here you just see me just making sure that I didn't miss any areas and getting that stain everywhere so that it looked nice and rich and very um, luscious. That's my word today, luscious. Some of the things I learned in this process, and I want to share it. One of the wonderful things that I learned is that you can clean your old mats. What I found is I had stain on the mats, and if I got some of that sandpaper, you could literally sand any stain that's on your mat and you can sand it down. I didn't know you could do that. And what I ended up doing is this mat that was really a mess and it had a lot of paint on it. If I got the sandpaper and lightly sanded in those areas, as I was sanding, you could literally see some of that paint lightening. As you see from far away as I'm sanding, I was in the process of sanding this mat for like good 30 minutes. And then I got Oxy wipes. I did have like little fibers of fleece here, and the Oxy wipes went ahead and removed them. Now I wanted to see if this really worked. Will this cutting, turning mat work for me? And so here I got my ruler and my rotary cutter, and I was wondering if maybe this would be too wobbly, or while I'm trying to cut, it would turn on me too fast. And honestly, this worked really great. I was surprisingly surprised that it worked. Um, it was just an idea that I'm all excited that it's working. So here you see me cutting, and you could get really precise cuts, and the mat really turns really easily.
So I hope you really like this tutorial on your cutting mat, delicious cutting mat. I am so excited to use this, to try it out, especially when I'm filming and doing YouTube tutorials. I really do hope you like the tutorial, and if you like it, hit like. If not, it's okay. Don't hit no like, okay? Me good. I get it. But either way, I hope you like this video. And I really appreciate you guys watching. You guys are awesome. Some of you guys just are a blessing in my life. And I appreciate your comments, your support. And I'm just real thankful that I'm enjoying this process and this time in my life. So anyhow, if you don't want to make the table or the Lazy Susan, have your son do it for you for Mother's Day. It would be a wonderful Mother's Day present for you quilters. So hint, hint to your sons. I really appreciate you watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye. Hi, my friends on YouTube. Yeah, I sound crazy. Oh. Mm-hmm. Do I have a booger? No. Okay, good. The other day I was filming. I had a booger hanging out there. I was like, oh, really?